We realize that there are those who are naturally humble and they are willing to humble themselves before God. But there are also others who must experience some great thing in order to make them humble. Good morning. I'm Pastor Ernie Lewis of the Blue Point Church in Sisney, Illinois, with your thoughts for Tuesday. When we read about the Apostle Peter in the New Testament, we believe him to be outspoken, brash, perhaps dangerously proud to be one of Jesus' disciples. And when Jesus has eaten the Last Supper with his disciples and he's led them out into the garden, he stops Peter along the way to caution him of the future and even warns him of what he might face. Jesus said in Luke chapter 22 and verse 31, "Simon, indeed, Satan has asked for you that he may sift you as wheat, but I have prayed for you that your faith should not fail." Now, Peter may have been embarrassed in front of all the other disciples, or maybe just angry that Jesus would even think such a thing of him being overcome by Satan. So he spoke up and he told Jesus, "Lord, I am ready to go with you both to prison and even to death." But Jesus knew his heart, and he knew the temptations that he would very soon face. So Jesus said, "I tell you, Peter, the rooster shall not crow this day before you will deny me 3 times that you know me." This must have been crushing to Peter's ego. But of course, we know the rest of the story from the gospel accounts of Peter's encounters. Jesus calls for these disciples to watch and pray, yet they continue to fall asleep. Then whenever the Roman soldiers came and carried Jesus away, Peter follows afar off. Now Jesus is taken into the Sanhedrin for this mock trial with paid witnesses there. And Peter is left outside. He's warming his hands around a fire with sort of a motley crew of scoffers there. And they begin to accuse him of being a follower of Jesus because of his appearance, because of his accent. And sure enough, 3 times he denies that he is a follower of Jesus and even ends it with an oath. Luke chapter 22 tells us that the rooster began to crow. And Jesus even turned from where he was to look at Peter. Suddenly the warning rings loud in his ears. "The rooster will not crow before you deny me 3 times. Now he is crushed by the weight of this experience. And the Bible says he went out and wept bitterly. So this experience humbled one who thought he was an invincible follower of Christ. Don't miss the rest of the story, by the way. Peter runs to the tomb whenever he hears that Jesus is risen and gathers with others when Jesus appears to them in Galilee. He steps up and takes a leadership role in Acts chapter 1 in choosing a replacement for Judas who has left him. He even preaches that tremendous sermon in Acts chapter 2 at Pentecost where 3,000 are added to the church. In Acts chapter 3, we find he and John are healing a man that is lame beside the gate. And in Acts chapter 4, he tells the Sanhedrin, we can't stop preaching Jesus. We think we ought to obey God rather than men. So the experience that Peter had was very humbling, but it also caused him to be willing to follow and to do all that God had called him to as Christ's follower.